First stage.
Diagnosis?
15 days quarantine out of work, Debbie.
Dr. Alsop. Dr. Alsop.
I'm on my way for 7 of those 14 or 15.
Ready when you are, Lord Mayor.
Ship.
Heck no. I don't like
Mayor.
Christmas. No, flying in, flying out.
He didn't even hear me.
I heard you.
Oh,
I heard that.
So,
he did hear me.
we're leaving,
He's Dr. Alsop.
Dr.
Dr.
Alsop.
Doolittle.
There you go, Dr. Doolittle.
You talk to the animals?
That's okay. I've been on antibiotics since Thursday. Double Z-Pack, so
It's
I'm
7
not
o'clock there.
contagious. It is time.
Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alsop.
Here.
Shield.
Here.
Musgrave.
Here.
Rankin. Kinnaman.
Here.
Powers.
Here.
McKinney.
Here. Any word from Mr. Rankin? Okay.
yes, actually, he sent a text shortly before the meeting and said he was ill and would not be here tonight.
I'll make the motion to excuse Councilmember Rankin.
Support.
There's motion support. Roll call vote, please.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. First item on the agenda is consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the village council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda.
I would like to bring down items 9 and 10 for the purpose that if we are making a proclamation or a declaration, it would be nice to actually state that.
9 and 10.
Yes.
It will be under new business, 9 and 10,
Becomes
Yes, 7 and 8.
7 and 8.
7 and 8.
Thank you. I would then make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. I'll second.
There's a motion and support. Roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is presentation. Chief Jerry Narsh. Good evening, Chief Narsh.
Good evening. Well, I'm honored to say, and it's always good to start a council meeting off with something fun. And the best part of being a police chief is always recognizing staff. And it's an honor and privilege to serve with extremely dedicated professional officers. And the Holly Police Department is blessed to have some really fine, outstanding, exceptional officers. And tonight, I would like to recognize two of those officers, Officers Daniel Livingston and Danielle Bai. And this, what I'm about to read for their meritorious service citation is an example of what police officers face daily in their jobs. It's one of the few jobs where you go to work and there's no guarantee you're going to come home in the condition you left or come home at all. This type of incident exemplifies the bravery and the courage and the dedication that our staff has. On January 3rd, 2020 at 1:20 a.m., officers Daniel Livingston and Danielle Bai were dispatched to a residence in the village of Holly for a report of a male subject threatening to harm himself. Upon arrival, the officers were greeted by a concerned family member who called police for help in preventing an extremely agitated 49-year-old male resident of the home from harming himself. The man appeared from a bedroom, yelled at the officers to leave, but both officers observed a severe facial wound. As medical emergency services were staging, the officers used verbal skills to attempt to persuade the man from continued self-harm. The man refused, retreating into his bedroom where he secured a hatchet and returning, threatening the officers. Both officers calmly convinced the man to drop the weapon, but then were engaged in a violent physical struggle to gain control. The officers' use of verbal and safe custody tactics allowed them to secure the man for treatment. The professional and calm conduct of Officers Daniel Livingston and Daniel Bai resulted in the safe custody and treatment in a violent armed encounter. Their actions bring credit to the Holly Police Department and to themselves. And I'm honored and proud to recognize them today with a citation for meritorious service for Dan Livingston. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And Daniel Bai. And with that, I also have for your uniforms matching war. And if I may be so bold, there's a rumor going around that I use social media, so I was hoping to get maybe a picture with council with the award. And maybe if council just stood, and then we could be with you guys in the background. It'd be fantastic.
Get everybody's face, huh? Brian, go this way a little bit. Right. Bob, you're good.
Hard not to.
Thank you, officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Officers Bach and Livingston. Job well done. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Members of the public can address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes. Council may extend this time by an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. Prior to addressing council, we ask that members of the public please state their name and address for the record. Any public comment? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Mary Blanchard, 3444 Old Creek Drive, Holly, Michigan. And I had previously written to each of the council members. I'm not sure if you got it. I am a current board member for Headwaters Trails and also a past board member for North Oakland Headwaters Land Conservancy, as well as other community groups. I don't live near Falk Road. I live north of the middle school. My concern is primarily with the water in Holly and keeping it clean and safe and plentiful for all of our residents now and in the future. I think all of these may be at risk between contamination of the soil and possibly the aquifer from the landfill. The Holly Hills Manufactured Home Community has several areas of concern, including 200 additional homes that can be voted on by the Michigan Manufactured Housing Commission as early as June, before results are known of the testing of the landfill and measurement of the aquifer to see if the increased pumping of supply water to all the residents and the stormwater runoff for additional paved surfaces would create a possible cone of depression and have inadequate recharge of our aquifer. Effluent from the wastewater treatment system at Holly Hills has been allowed to dump into the Shiawassee River since 2000. There have been 104 violations, 19 just in 2019. Health and safety should be the top concern of everyone. Let's make sure that our current residents are protected and our children and grandchildren get to enjoy the wonderful qualities that make Holly home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comments? Yes.
Pat Feeney, 210 Franklin Street. I just wanted to have something clarified because there seems to have been a lot of discussion on social media and about town, and some information that I've gotten from a couple of council members that doesn't seem to really explain the situation. And that is, what is the status of the public restrooms next to the vault? Is it a public restroom? Is there some kind of agreement? We've been told by one council member there's a deed restriction. Then we were told there's a sunset law that may have expired. Just kind of like to, get a clear idea of exactly what the situation is. If it is a private bathroom and they're doing us a favor, well, fantastic, but I think the public has the right to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Stacy Taylor, 15566 Falk Road. So I've been doing this for 928 days. I looked it up. So it was August 25th, 2017 when we found out about the potential for an expansion for Holly Hills. None of that was disclosed to me when I bought my house. I also found out in the last few years that I live next door to a dump. My sister-in-law lives adjacent to that dump on Rice Lake. Both of us have serious concerns about the contamination that is flowing across our land into her lake, and definitely from all the reports we've read and recovered, affecting the aquifer, which is also the same aquifer that the village of Holly's wells are on. So I spent most of the day talking to people in town, and there's a lot of people in town that have some health concerns that are very actively hoping to get some answers. So that dump in 1995, they had a report. My husband's going to hand them out. This is with the documents that I handed out in Lansing in early December. We gave Jerry Walker a copy. We gave George Cullis a copy in November or December, and nothing has been tested in 25 years. They had at that time called for 14 more wells so we could understand the ground flow, and it's complicated. So this is a glacial outwash area where we are on Falk Road. So it is the top of the Portland Moraine. It's a recharge station for our drinking water, and it is extremely important to the amount of clean drinking water at this spot. Look up some maps, because I have hundreds of maps. There's a lot of concerns about density. This is the township in 1992. There is no backup for our drinking water. This is the township also in 92. The concerns are about the wetlands, including Michigan Natural Features Inventory. There are prairie fens on the minor where the Holly Hills site is. Those prairie fens are probably already destroyed, and there's less than 4% left in in the world. The Power Chic skipperling, the little butterfly, the number one in Michigan for being at threat, there's less than 100 left in the world, and that discharge into the Shiawassee, which Mary mentioned to you, is of significant. So I'm going to get right to the point of the dump. So this is where the village was told to clean up the dump in 1995. It is a sole source aquifer. There is no backup if we get this wrong and it's contaminated. And that is Nancy Stroll, who is over in Rounds Township, saying that there is no backup. This is the document that stopped the dump in 1969. I have all kinds of things on density control. I can just go on and on, but I'm going to get right to the dump. So this 94 report that my husband's going to hand to each of you is for the most part exactly what I handed out in Lansing to Jerry Walker and to George Cullis. There is a lot more information to go with that, but this one sentence right here I have a real big problem with, and it says, the process, this is the design of cleanup and closure strategy. This process will involve reviewing several alternative strategies, including the relative costs and associated effectiveness as a long-term solution. Selection of a final method will depend on the desired final use of the site, anticipated future development in the area, and the risks acceptable to the community. So I'm asking you, what are the risks acceptable to you as being in charge of our community? This happened to me, and please pass that around. There is a website thing on Facebook. So Wendy Davis, Kelly Belcher, and Mike Brewer. So the concerns they have, autoimmune, cancer, thyroid issues, etc. This is the chemicals that we recovered. Sorry, I had this all in order at one point. But the ones that are the soil contamination in 95, when Cheryl Wilson called for this to be cleaned up, arsenic, cadmium, chromium, copper, I said that wrong, lead, mercury, nickel, zinc, and I'm sorry, I still can't pronounce this, PHENANATHRENE. It's a known environmental contamination. So some of this is batteries, some of this is pesticides, plating, paint. We're concerned about the varnish factory from the old piano factory, the battery factory for plate poles, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone further for public comment?
Thank you, sir.
Mark Taylor, 15566 Falk Road, Holly Township, Michigan. I'm going to go a little more on a personal level. When we were purchasing our house 7 years ago, we went to the Holly Township and pulled up the plat map for across the street because I wanted to live on a dirt road with lots of woods around me, which is what I currently own. The Holly Township plat map still shows residential sectioning across the street to this day. The Village of Holly came up as the ownership of the 40-acre dump site that's next to my home. Did not mention it's a dump site, just said the village owned it. I saw the signs for no dumping. I figured some guy owned it. People dump stuff like couches out there. I had no idea at the time the Village of Holly owned and operated this from 1922 to 1975, roughly. There are comments that they didn't know which way the ground flow, water flow was going, back by Cheryl Wilson. Well, that was determined. It runs due north to my home, across the back of my property, across residential properties next to me, and then from the back of the dump runs directly down to my sister's home at the end of the north easement driveway. There was actually a pipeline installed in that dump to further water flow from the original 9 acres of the dump site to a wetlands that flows directly across the face of my sister's property. A man-made structure, mind you, to get water flowing. Jerry Walker has commented that you guys are going to employ people and that it's going to be done correctly. I sincerely hope so, because we're going to be watching, and we're going to be having independent testing done of the water that flows across my home and my sister's home. And this is not just dump site, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just some little area where they burn compost, which they did burn compost. This was a site that to this day has barrels exposed on top of the property. This dump site was not properly closed. I have a brother-in-law who works for testing engineers. It was not closed properly. I can guarantee you that. Something you might want to look into. So this is personal for me because this water, groundwater, is flowing across my property. I'm not happy about the Holly Hills expansion, but I am certainly not happy about learning about this dump site 3 years ago. I had professional representation from a realtor who lived and grew up in this area, and I was not told of either of these two things. I will not bet that one person in this room would have purchased the property where you live at now, would you have known there was both a toxic dump site, proven toxic dump site, and a future expansion going directly across from your property, when that's not what I was looking to purchase. I've lived in the Holly area for 20 years. I love this area. The first thing I should have done is moved and ran. But that's not going to help all of you guys. It's not going to help the water of Holly. It's not going to help the residents of Holly. In closing, I watched the video of last month's meeting. I would appreciate that if the council would not make jokes to the effect of green ooze, because once again, green ooze, it's not going to be green ooze coming out of that. It's going to be chemicals. And you made a comment about green ooze.
I didn't make a joke.
Yes.
No, I didn't.
Well, you made a comment.
You misunderstood me. Your time's
And
running out, so take
Deborah
your,
Musgrave,
make
you
your,
got
make your
well,
presentation.
Deborah Musgrave got a very good belly laugh out of it. So you know what?
Make your presentation and stick
I would
to
appreciate-
your facts. Stick to your facts.
I would appreciate that you not comment anything to that effect ever again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what?
No, I said I would just appreciate you would never comment to the Green News Factor ever again.
I was
I
wondering
think it
what
was
the
unprofessional.
objective evidence of new infiltration out there was. Objective evidence.
Well,
Now,
there
you-
will be.
There will be a test.
You're
Has
going to
there-
test, and we're going to
Has
test.
there been a test?
Okay. Thank you for your
Has there
time.
been a test?
No, you guys are determining who you're going to
We're
use.
paying for a test.
Yes, I
There's
understand.
been no test.
Right.
You
by
didn't
Eagle.
do a test.
Right.
You didn't do a test.
No, I have not
Okay,
done a test
thank
yet.
you.
No.
That's all.
Okay.
We're doing a test.
Thank you for your time. Yeah, I understand.
Any further public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, public comments closed. There is no old business. Item 1 under new business, special event, Holly Farmers Market.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Here with us tonight is Genevieve Rainey. As you know, she has supervised and really put together from the beginning the farmers market that operates in Crapo Park. Genevieve attended the Parks Commission meeting, the latest one, where discussion took place regarding the market. And so it's here for a special event permit tonight. We've changed the procedures just a little bit in the type of vendor forms that are used and the procedure for background checks. So actually, Chief Narsh is employing a little more stringent, which I think is a great idea, background check procedure, not only for the farmers market, but for all vendor or solicitation type activities within the village. And so we may discuss that a little more in depth. But I'll turn it over to Genevieve now. You can just give just a basic synopsis of what's going to occur. The one thing that I'd like you to keep in mind is with this permit, we have the National Traveling Vietnam Memorial Wall, which will be coming to Holly in August. And so on that one date, that actually is in the time frame that's specified on the permit for approval. And we'll work out details with Genevieve and the other vendors at the market about relocation of their activity, just so it doesn't conflict with the wall. So there's no reason that farmers market cannot occur that day. We'll just choose another location, whether it's at the former fire station site or Battle Alley or wherever it is, but we'll work that out.
Yeah, I think we were thinking the fire station site out of those, if those were the two final options, just because there'd be more room for parking and for the vendors to get in and out, that kind of thing. So just logistics. So I've passed out our version of our vendor packet, so that's what the vendors have to fill out for us. There's going to be another piece of paperwork that's for the police department that is still, that'll be created in the next couple weeks. That's being created by the village. So that's the background check form. The only thing that's changed for this year is we did increase the price to $15 for the 10 by 10 spot. And part of our reasoning for that is because we're going into our third year now and we're more established. We've built in some discounts, so if you pay for the whole season up front, it's still between $10 and $11 for that day, for that 10 by 10 spot per day if you buy the whole season, which is 23 days. And then we also have a discount built in where if they get a 10 by 20 spot, it's $20. And then there's again another discount built in if they buy the whole season. So that's some of our pricing that we determined for this year. And we actually, I went and talked to the chief yesterday about the background check. And we decided, because there's going to be a small additional cost for that background check, that the market would just pay for that check, so that first-time vendors, if they have one or two people interacting with the public and taking money, they don't have to pay that up front. We'll just pay for them to have that background check. And 80% of our vendors are return vendors, so that means that by paying for that up front, we're hoping that they'll come back and be a vendor again, and we'll recoup that in the long term. So that's some of our thoughts about the pricing. New this year is, so I also handed out this paperwork that says what the farmers market day of coordinator, what their responsibility is going to be. So we're going to do something a little bit different this year. In the fact that one of our vendors, Diana Reagan, who does produce, she is going to become our day of coordinator. So you can see listed there that there's responsibilities listed and her benefits, and then also what my responsibilities will be for this year and what my benefits would be. So the idea is that we're going to work together, split those profits 50-50, and I say profits in the fact that those are our wages. So last year we made about $1,200, I think it was $1,275 or so, and we had worked at least 150 hours. So because either myself or my husband Eric are there from 8:30 to 2:30 or 3 o'clock every single Sunday for 23 days. So it works out to be at about $6 an hour. It's less than minimum wage. But, you know, this is a really good thing for the community. And so in order to facilitate someone else taking over the market next year, we're working with Diana this year. She's a very experienced vendor. She's had over 10 years working at markets. She has also spoken to the other vendors to make sure that they're okay with her being the day of coordinator, that there's no conflict of interest there. And the idea is that we will work together this year, and then next year she will take it over full time. And her daughter are the ones that will be taking it over full time. So, yeah.
Thank you, Genevieve.
Could I say something?
Certainly.
Genevieve has done a great job on this, incredibly well organized. As being part of the parks, I was asked to go over and kind of oversee how things are going, with the idea that maybe I would take it over someday. I do not want to take it over. It's a lot of work, and Genevieve and Josh have done really a terrific job. You can't help be impressed when the vendors all pull up, they all know what they're doing, they all unload, there's no commotion, it all runs very smoothly. So thank you, it's very well organized.
Thank you, Rick. Anything else?
Any questions of Genevieve? Any further comments?
Thank you for taking this on again.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
It's been very fun and rewarding, really. Yeah.
It's very busy.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Mr. Walker, you wanted a,
So we just need approval of this special event permit so that
Okay.
they can move forward.
I'll make the motion that we approve the special event permit for the Holly Farmers Market.
Support.
there's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2 under new business, consideration of the approval of resolution 2020-012, authorizing the preparation of the special assessment roll for the treatment of the weeds on the Holly Mill Pond.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had the public hearing at the last council meeting. No one opposed it. There was only a couple of people that spoke, and they spoke for this. The price has remained the same for the last 3 years. We get a really good deal from Aquaweed, who is also on the pond and has to pay their fair share for it also. So I'm asking for the approval to do the special assessment district for the treatment of weeds on the Holly Mill Pond for the 2020 tax season.
So moved.
Support. Motion and support. To approve the special assessment roll for the treatment of the weeds in the mill pond. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 3 under new business, consideration of the approval of ordinance 458, amending section concerning tobacco, vapor, and nicotine products in the Village of Holly Code of Ordinances. Chief Narsh.
Thank you, Council. Pursuant to changes in state law on possession and use of tobacco and vaping products and the dramatic increase in their use in our schools and community, I've asked Village Attorney Michael Gildner to regulate these products under local ordinance. The effect of this ordinance will be to allow our school resource officers and police officers to issue these citations under local ordinance. This allows the return on fines to the village and better case tracking and follow-up with our youthful offenders, with our SRO officers, and our youth coalitions. I've reviewed and recommend the adoption of the attached draft ordinance number 458. Staff is recommending the approval of ordinance 458, which amends section 13004 of chapter 1 of the Code of Ordinances concerning tobacco, vapor, and nicotine products. And basically what we've done is mirrored state law to adopt as local ordinance with changes more easily in effect as the state changes them. Thank you.
Any comments or questions for the chief? It's a recommendation to approve ordinance number 458.
So while you're reviewing that, if I can say, so as you know, vaping is something that's been in the news pretty heavily lately. It's a very serious issue. We've actually processed, or the police department has processed several complaints to date, and they've had to process them under the state law. And so the addition of this being handled under local ordinance will aid the police department in dealing with these issues on a more local basis.
What's the pleasure of council?
I make the motion that we pass this consideration of approval of the ordinance 458.
All support.
Motion support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Item 4, under new business, consideration of the approval of ordinance 459, amending the sections concerning shipping containers and short-term rental in the Village of Holly Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
President, thank you, sir. We've had multiple meetings with the Planning Commission here. We're looking to adopt 2 new ordinances, one for the shipping containers. Those are the units that you will see being transported on cargo ships, the back of semis, and now we are seeing them more in our residential areas as a storage or an accessory structure. This new ordinance here will put a little bit more firmer rules and regulations on the design and the location of these structures to make it look a little bit more presentable and flow with the characters of the neighborhood. The second section of this ordinance pertains to short-term rentals in the downtown district. That would also be for anything above the first floor. So nothing on the first floor in the downtown district would be used as lodging. Anything above the first floor would be an approved use for a either short-term rental, which would be an Airbnb or something similar to that use. The Planning Commission has had a public hearing on this, and we have recommended it to council for your approval, and I believe staff has also recommended as well.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Any comments or questions of Mr. Watson or Mr. Kinnaman, who's fair game on this topic?
Could I ask, where do these, they aren't storage, but I like to call them this almost dump sites where these people bring in these things for dumping clothes and stuff like that. Is that included in there also?
No, Mr. Powers, but we are currently working on that ordinance. We just forwarded it off to Mr. Gildner's office for review. There were some legalities that we needed to get worked out with other municipalities being sued for some different issues. So we forwarded it to Mr. Gildner's office for review. We're anticipating we'll see that in the next month or two coming back to the Planning Commission for our recommendation to council. So you will see that come down the pipeline, I would say, in the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay, thank you.
This one specifically, like Jeremy has said, is the containers that come like off from trucks and things like that, so that
Like where somebody has purchased them
and then turns it into
like a house or
storage or housing or anything like that on their property. And so we would like those to not look like a truck. We would like them to look like an actual residential building. And the short-term rentals, we already brought through some things on short-term rentals, and we had some requests to include some wording to allow it to exist in the downtown district. And so we worked through some modifications that would apply to downtown. One of those being interconnected smoke alarms on each floor, so that in a store or something, if there were to be a fire in the basement, that the apartment on the second or third floor gets the same alarm. They do not need to be hardwired. There is wireless options out there now that would make that feasible in a downtown setting.
What's the pleasure of council?
If we don't have any other, I would make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 459, shipping containers and short-term rentals.
Support.
There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 5 under new business, consideration of the approval of ordinance 460, amending the sections concerning rental registration in the Village of Holly Code of Ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. President. Did you want to take this here on charter and ordinance, or did you want me to?
You start with it and I can
Okay.
follow up.
A couple of years ago, we cleaned up all of the ordinances that concerned rental inspections. We just went through and cleaned them up and made them work better, but we didn't do it for rental registrations. So we went through and cleaned them up. At the time, we had authorized late penalties, but we never specified anything about it. So the Charter and Ordinance Committee met. They went through the ordinance. They cleaned up the language so that it was all nice and tidy. So we're asking that that ordinance be amended so that the rental registration ordinance is as clear as the rental inspection ordinance, and we have a clear idea of what is expected.
The main change that we've made here is in the time frame for when it is considered delinquent. In the old ordinance, that was an ambiguous phrase, and here we have clarified that to be 30 days. And so they begin in January 1st, so by January 31st, then it becomes a delinquent registration, and there is a fine for that. So this is kind of really clearing up some ambiguous phrasing in the previous ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Bigger. Thank you, Mr. Kinnaman. Any further comments or questions? It is the recommendation that the council approve ordinance number 460.
I make the motion that consideration and approval of ordinance 460, amending the sections concerning rental registration in the Village of Holly Code of Ordinances.
Support.
There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 6 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to purchase 3 parcels from CSX Railroad.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and Council. So the council action request that you have before you, I'm going to amend this right now while we're considering it, while you're considering it. And the reason is that over the weekend on Friday, Director Hughes, or Director Golden, and myself had conversation with representatives from CSX Rail regarding the purchase of proposed properties, and they made it very clear that they not only did not desire to sell 2 of the 3 parcels, which the Depot Relocation Committee had wanted as council authorization to make an offer upon, but they could not because they have in fact sold them to another entity, and most probably Lake State Rail, who currently operates on that railroad. So we're going to amend this just to consider that parcel ID number 01-34-306-003. So if you look at the flip side of the document that you have in front of you, and you put it so that Broad Street is at the bottom of the page, even though it's upside down, you'll see there's somewhat of a triangle piece of property there, and it has that PIN number of 003 being the last 3 that you'll see on there. So on March the 2nd, the Depot Relocation Committee met, as we do on a monthly basis. We knew that we were after that parcel 003 to relocate the depot, but the other 2 parcels the committee was interested in also, just to further enhance the site. But we definitely need 003. 003 is large enough to relocate the depot, and we're on somewhat of a timeline with the relocation efforts due to a grant that we were fortunate enough to get awarded to us due to the work of Katie and Rachel Orzechowski from our office, and the many volunteers that they enlisted. So we have a timeline that we're working on. So the Depot Relocation Committee discussed and then decided to request from council authorization to purchase those parcels, but just the 1 parcel is available, and that's the one that is really needed for $35,000. So the relocation committee has a little over $36,000 in savings right now, and so they have the funds if the council authorizes this purchase. And so really what we have is we have a depot that the village owns, but we have no property to put it on. So we need this property. We've had discussion with the railroad about what is an acceptable price, and so we've been negotiating verbally. And as you know, we did make a $20,000 offer that council approved previously, but was not even considered by the railroad because they said it didn't even cover their cost, business operations, to complete a transfer. And so this is what I have before you tonight. I'm asking for authorization based upon request of the Depot Relocation Committee to submit a written offer to CSX Rail in the amount of $35,000 to acquire parcel 01-34-306-003.
Any
305-003.
003. Any comments or questions?
Yes. Now, who is actually paying for this property? Is it the depot committee or is it the village?
So there were a little over $20,000 that was raised several years ago. This project has been going on, how long, Marlo? Years. Years, yeah. And so there was it was around $22,000 that was held in account for depot relocation. And then since that time, the Depot Relocation Committee has solicited funds to move that amount up to a little over $36,000 that they have. So they have a $150,000 grant to assist in the relocation, the moving of the depot, once we have a location for it. And really, once we acquire property to put the depot on, that's when fundraising will go into overdrive. Because $150,000 is not enough to move the depot. But we're confident as a committee that we'll be able to raise those funds. So we're not asking for any village money. We're asking for authorization because the building even moved, even though the relocation committee's fund is going to move or pay for the purchase of this property is going to be owned by the Village of Holly. And so that's why we need your authorization to move forward.
It's interesting to me that the other two parcels, 001 is mostly a municipal parking lot. Finished grade, paved, curved, but it's owned by, I guess, Lake States, although that didn't appear in the title work that I saw. The title search that I did, I didn't see any title work.
I think this is a brand new transaction. I'm not even sure it's finalized. They may just have a deal in principle because Friday was the very first time that we heard of the sale.
Yeah, CSX was the last owner of record that I saw. And then 002 is mostly Crapo Park.
Yes.
I guess I always understood that was owned by the railroad going back forever.
Yep.
But they also allowed the village to build its parking lot on 002. Any further comments or questions? The recommendation is to authorize the purchase of 001 from CSX Railroad.
No, 003 actually.
003, I'm sorry. Great. 003.
I'll make the motion that we authorize, excuse me, the committee to offer the purchase for 003 for not to exceed $35,000.
Support.
Motion support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 7 under new business is item 9 under the consent agenda, resolution and proclamation designating Arbor Day on April 24, 2020. Any comments from staff on this?
None other than, I'm sure the members in the audience, they don't have the benefit of having a copy of it, nor do those that follow on YouTube. It may be appropriate, since Mr. Kinnaman brought it up, if it were read into the record, just so that everybody knew exactly what was being considered. Or I could do it if you'd like, it's up to you.
It's Resolution 2020-010, resolution and proclamation designating Arbor Day on April 24, 2020. Whereas in May 1971, the Village Council made a proclamation declaring Memorial Day each year a Morris Fine Day, and whereas on February 1, 1994, the Village Council respected the wishes of the previous council in honoring Morris Fine, but also stated that Memorial Day held a special significance for American veterans, and they were deserving of such honor, and whereas in Resolution 9414, the Village Council proclaimed April 22nd, 1994 to be designated as Morris Fine Day and Arbor Day, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our village increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and now therefore be it resolved, the Village Council of the Village of Holly hereby proclaims April 24, 2020 as Arbor Day and Morris Fine Day, and urges all citizens to support efforts to care for our trees and woodlands and to support our village's forestry program. That is the resolution which is requested to be adopted by the Village Council tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Just a comment. I knew Mr. Fine. He was a merchant in town. His daughters were also in retail. And he was a good businessman, a good friend, a good neighbor, and key in the involvement in the development of the township park at Bush Lake, the township park and the beach at Bush Lake. And those were just a few of the many good things he did. And when they recognized him for Morris Fine Day, we actually had a Morris Fine Arboretum in the vicinity of the Mill Pond Dam. And we were going to plant trees there and have a park there. And then we found out that the new trees would undermine the dam, which would be counterproductive. So that project was, it's still owned by the village. But the project of the Arboretum was amended or revised. There was a bridge there at one time. I don't recommend it as an architectural venture. It was built by the Kiwanis Club. It didn't last as long as the Mackinac Bridge. It was removed. My brief remarks, that's all. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Item 8 under new business, item 10 under consent agenda, resolution to declare the month of April 2020 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. Any comments from the staff on this?
No, I mean, so I think this is a admirable thing for the village to do. It actually is a request from the Care House, who is a tremendous partner to law enforcement in the investigation when such crimes occur. And so they work with all local communities in this endeavor. And so the resolution is pretty straightforward. And it's just looking for recognition, awareness, and just reminding the community that this is a real thing that occurs and that attention needs to be paid to it.
A motion would be in order. Any further comments or questions, or a motion would be in order?
So moved.
Support.
Motion support. Still, comments would be in order. Any comments of the council at all? Roll call vote, please.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Alsop. Kinnaman.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried. Reports. We have your written report. Mr. Walker, anything further?
Yeah. Just one other thing. So during public comment, Mr. Feeney asked about the public restroom downtown, and in fact, there was a lot of comment about that, and more question than anything. And so I did answer on that social media site what the exact status was, but just for full clarification, when that building was sold, 202 South Saginaw, there was a permanent deed restriction which was put into place. So that deed restriction allows for the village to maintain, at our cost, that restroom, and it's for public use. Now, what brought this a little bit to the forefront is that recently, due to some vandalism and some other activities that were occurring down there, the police department has started to lock that restroom, depending upon the day and what events are occurring downtown and the activity of the police department, but somewhere 8 o'clock or after, it is being unlocked, and then it is, or being locked, and then in the morning, it is unlocked by the DPW. And so really that's kind of what started the discussion on social media. But the status of the restroom is, it is owned by Vince Iafano and Kari Cuxey. They respect the deed restriction that was placed on the building. It was actually placed on prior to them purchasing the building. They were not the ones that requested that the restroom be locked during nighttime hours. That was a staff-driven decision. They were informed that we were going to lock it, and that's where it is right now. Other than that, I have nothing other than what is on my written report, except the Taylors and Mrs. Blanchard talked about the dump site. And we have the request for proposals received. We're reviewing them. We should have just some action within the next week as far as signing an agreement and to get the observation and the assessment of first those 11 test wells that are in place now. And then we'll go from there, and we'll keep council updated as we progress.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Mr. Gildner.
It was a busy month. You saw the handiwork. You addressed many of the things that I was asked to prepare. I don't have anything beyond that.
Mr. Strittmatter was here when the attorneys were taking incoming.
I saw that from the minutes. It was a good meeting for me to miss.
Mr. Strittmatter acquitted himself well, considering. Ms. Bigger.
Nothing to add to my written report. I do want to remind council and the people in the audience that the next budget study session will be on April 9th in the community room down by our offices.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Bigger.
6 o'clock?
Yep, 6 o'clock.
Now we have our combination boards and commissions and council updates. Mr. Powers?
I wanted to allude to what Jerry talked about earlier about the Vietnam Wall coming in to the village of Holly. It looks like it's going to be coming in on August 6th and staying until that Sunday. It will open up on that Thursday at 2 o'clock and close down at 2 o'clock on that following Sunday. The proposed site is going to be Crapo Park, which I think is a great location to it, because a lot of the downtown businesses will be able to benefit from this wall coming in. And the question has come up, how many people are you expecting? And it's next to impossible to tell how many will be here. We're projecting between 5,000 and 15,000 guests coming into the village over that 4-day period. So there'll be, I feel, a healthy attendance depending on the weather. If the weather is nice, we'll have a very good attendance. And we're now working on the funds for, they're going to be needed, which is going to be about $23,000 for bringing the wall in. None of it will be monies that will be coming from the village. They will all be private funds from private donors. Do you have anything to add to that, Jerry? No.
We heard at the DDA meeting last night that there'll be only one other appearance in the state of Michigan of the full-size wall.
Right.
And that'll be on the west side of the state.
Correct.
Yes.
So it's should be quite an event.
It should be very exciting, and keep our fingers crossed and hope for nice weather. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Kinnaman?
The Planning Commission met and has been reviewing the master plan process a little more, and we are moving forward with that. In the next meeting, we will be reviewing some site plans for 104 Maple Street, which was the sewing repair shop. That they are doing some significant renovations, the new owners are, and so they're coming before the Planning Commission with that. I just would like to make a comment about one of the items we pulled off was the RTA. That was pulled off, I believe, because that was, it was pulled off from the table in Lansing. It was not presented, and I, as an individual, personally find that to be a good move, that did not go through at this time. The things I have seen, and this does not mean that it is finished. It means they're going to find another way. This feels like a financial tax grab from collar counties for some very deep financial issues within the Detroit RTA. And we do not need our residents funding their mistakes. That would be it.
Thank you. Ms. Musgrave?
Nothing.
Mr. Alsop?
Nothing for council, but I missed a DDA meeting, I mean, a zoning board meeting. And Jerry, do you have any information on that? I was ill and I didn't make it.
Well, so actually, that was a meeting that Mr. Watson handled, but the issue that was on the agenda for the variance was approved.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shield?
I am met, and this is kind of brief. Police Chief Narsh is the new liaison for the Board of Directors from the village of the police department, and he announced that there are 2 SROs, or the school resource officers, and they are Mike. Who are they, Jerry? Or if you can help me with that. What's that?
Mike Hauk and Heather Wolkow.
And the Haya annual banquet will be April the 16th at Calvary United Methodist Church, and invitations will be sent. And Haya will be manning the popcorn table once again during the weekly car shows, and that's it from Haya. The HDC has not met until this coming Thursday. For my council comments, I'd just like to congratulate the 2 officers that won or got the certificates this evening. And that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Shield. I have no comments. If there's no objection, we'll adjourn. No objection, we're adjourned. Oh, yeah.